Welcome back to Chicago Independent Television. For the first time in over 20 years, Chicago has a new mayor. Will he be any better than the last one? We'll learn more about the sordid history of Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel in this next segment.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name.
I, Rahm Emanuel,
Do solemnly swear
that
I will support the Constitution of the United States.
On May 16, 2011, Rahm Israel Emanuel was inaugurated as the 55th mayor of the city of Chicago and the first new Chicago mayor in 22 years, succeeding six-time winner Richard M. Daley. Daley explained his reason for resigning merely with the words, quote, "It's time," unquote. But Daley's term in office was marred with numerous controversies: an unfair tax increment financing system, suspicious closed-door privatization deals, possible connections to a police torture ring, antagonism to grassroots political activists, and the coup d'etat, a failed bid for the 2016 Summer Olympic Games. Daley's successor as mayor, Rahm Emanuel, is cut from the same corrupt corporate cloth. In fact, Emanuel's political career began working as a consultant and fundraiser for Richard Daley, and true to form, Emanuel broke the law almost from the get-go by consulting for bond firms which did business with the city of Chicago during his time as a consultant. Emanuel joined Bill Clinton's campaign for president, and after Clinton won the presidency, Emanuel served as a senior consultant in the White House in 1993. Emanuel developed a reputation as an enforcer, marshaling Democratic Party votes in support of NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, the massive investor rights bill which gave corporations sovereignty over elected governments and local laws. Emanuel left the White House to become an investment banker and vice chair of the CHA, the Chicago Housing Authority. During his time with the CHA, Emanuel contributed to the CHA's controversial Plan for Transformation, which demolished public housing structures in Chicago without replacing them, displacing thousands of needy Chicagoans in the process. Emanuel is quoted as calling the welfare reform efforts of the Clinton White House, quote, "the most successful social policy experiment in a generation," unquote. Those reform efforts escalated child poverty in America to the point that, as of 2010, more than 1 out of every 5 children in America lives in poverty. In 2002, Emanuel returned to electoral politics, this time running for Congress himself and vying for Illinois' 5th congressional district seat, the seat held by such scandal-ridden politicos as convicted House Ways and Means Chair Dan Rostenkowski and future Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. Emanuel was elected to Congress, doing so with the illegal assistance of city water workers, whose boss would later plead guilty to bribery charges. Emanuel spent 6 years in Congress, 2 years as chair of the Democratic caucus, and in that time accumulated a tremendous amount of money, becoming the top recipient in all of Congress of donations from hedge funds and private equity firms. Some may consider Democrats to be less pro-war than Republicans, but Emanuel backed pro-war Democrats in the 2006 congressional primaries. The most notable example was the Illinois 6th District primary battle between pro-war candidate Tammy Duckworth and anti-war critic Christine Segalis. The pro-war Duckworth won the primary, but lost in the general election. Emanuel's pro-war stance also drew the ire of Chicago peace activists, who made his Chicago congressional office a flashpoint of protest. Emanuel was plucked from Congress in 2008 after the election of Chicagoan Barack Obama to the presidency, serving as White House Chief of Staff. During the 2 years he spent in that position, Emanuel tried to stymie Obama's health care reform plan, despite the plan's pro-corporate orientation. Emanuel also attacked liberal Democrats in Congress, who openly criticized Obama's lukewarm efforts to address a number of serious problems. And Emanuel openly criticized organized labor. One quote concerned the UAW, the United Auto Workers, and Emanuel reputedly said, quote, "bleep the UAW," unquote. Back in Chicago, Richard Daley announced his resignation in September 2010, throwing open the election with 20 people formally submitting candidacies. By the time the election was held in February 2011, 6 candidates remained on the ballot. But Emanuel's place on the ballot wasn't a given. He faced a residency challenge since local law required Emanuel to live in Chicago in the 12 months prior to running for office. And Emanuel obviously lived in Washington while as Chief of Staff. The challenge did win at the appellate court level, but was later unanimously overturned by the Illinois Supreme Court. Rahm Emanuel played off positive vibes as Obama's guy, and his campaign commercials made him sound as if he was the second coming of Jane Addams.
And it's high time the politicians start working for the people that elected him, rather than have people working so the politicians get rich off this system.
But a deeper look at the campaign told a very different story. Emanuel was found to have ties to the firm that won Chicago's controversial parking meter lease. And on the campaign trail, Emanuel falsely claimed high results from Chicago charter schools. What's more, Emanuel raised more than 5 times the amount of money than his 5 mayoral opponents combined, and he received considerable campaign contributions from the financial sector. And then there's the role of the media. The Chicago Reporter magazine counted the number of times each of the 6 mayoral candidates was mentioned in the Chicago Tribune and Chicago Sun-Times newspapers, and found that the combined percentage of those mentions in those newspapers mirrored the final vote positions the candidates received in the general election. Emanuel received a majority of votes and won election outright. And in the first 6 months of his administration, Mayor Emanuel has taken the gloves off. He has clashed with local labor unions, slashed the budgets of local services, closed what meager transparency there was out of the mayor's office, and scheduled an international summit, the G8 NATO summit, without any feedback from Chicagoans. He has ignored the pleas of grassroots activists planning to protest the G8 NATO summit, and he has rebuffed Occupy Chicago, refusing to work with Occupy to find a suitable public space, and refusing to drop charges against more than 300 people arrested amidst Occupy Chicago protests. Chicago is America's largest city without mayoral term limits, so what we've seen from Chicago in the first 6 months of Mayor Rahm Emanuel could prove a telling omen of policies to come for quite some time. Say hello to the new boss, worse than the old boss.
Of the office of mayor.
Of the office of mayor.
Of the city of Chicago.
Of the city of Chicago.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Chicago Independent Television is not brought to you by Walmart. There's a reason we're the world's most profitable corporation. We pay our employees peanuts. Learn more at walmartwatch.com. Walmart. Always low wages, always.